Henry Baxter sat in his wheelchair at the front of the town hall, his presence commanding respect from the gathered crowd. The community of Jasper, British Columbia, had come together for a special event, honoring the town's veterans and their contributions. Henry, a war veteran who had lost his legs in combat, was the keynote speaker. His voice, steady and passionate, filled the room as he spoke about resilience and unity. "Today, we remember those who gave everything," Henry said, his eyes scanning the faces before him. "We honor their sacrifices and draw strength from their courage. Let us stand together, no matter what challenges come our way." The audience erupted in applause, moved by his words. Henry's friend, James Cooper, stood nearby, his face reflecting a mix of admiration and concern. James had known Henry for years, having served with him in the military. He knew how much this speech meant to Henry and the community. As the applause died down, a sudden, eerie silence fell over the town hall. The air felt charged with an unspoken tension. Without warning, the sky outside darkened, and a strange hum reverberated through the building. The townspeople rushed to the windows, their expressions turning from curiosity to fear as alien ships descended from the sky. James moved quickly to Henry's side. "We need to get you out of here," he urged, his voice tight with urgency. But Henry shook his head, his eyes fixed on the unfolding scene outside. "No, James. We need to stay and protect our people," Henry replied, his determination unwavering. The alien ships landed with a mechanical grace, and figures began to emerge, tall, slender beings with an otherworldly aura. They were the Vorn, a race known for their technological prowess and ruthless efficiency. The townspeople backed away in fear as the Vorn approached, their intentions unclear. A Vorn leader stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the crowd before settling on Henry. The alien's eyes narrowed as he took in Henry's wheelchair. Misinterpreting Henry's disability as a sign of human frailty, he raised his arm and fired a plasma shot, striking Henry in the chest. The room erupted into chaos. Screams filled the air as people scrambled for cover. James knelt beside Henry, his heart pounding in his chest. Henry's eyes fluttered open, and he grasped James's hand weakly. "Don't let this be for nothing," Henry whispered, his voice barely audible. "Promise me." Tears streamed down James's face as he nodded. "I promise, Henry. I promise." Henry's grip loosened, and his eyes closed for the final time. James stood, his sorrow transforming into a fierce resolve. He turned to the crowd, his voice rising above the chaos. "Listen to me," James shouted. "Henry's sacrifice will not be in vain. We need to unite and fight back. We owe it to him and to ourselves." The townspeople, galvanized by James's words, began to organize. As the Vorn retreated to their ships, believing their message had been delivered, the humans of Jasper prepared for the battles ahead. In a hidden corner of the Vorn mothership, Tlan, a scientist who had observed the execution, felt a pang of regret. Watching Henry's final moments had stirred something within him. The data on human resilience he'd gathered suddenly felt personal. Tlan decided then and there that he would do whatever he could to prevent further bloodshed. Back on Earth, James stood at the forefront of the town's defenses, his mind racing with strategies and plans. The image of Henry's determined face was etched into his memory, a constant reminder of the promise he had made. As the sun set over Jasper, the town's resolve shone brightly, a beacon of unity and strength. James Cooper stood in the dimly lit community center, addressing a crowd that had grown larger than he had anticipated. The news of Henry's death had spread like wildfire, igniting a flame of outrage and sorrow that brought people from all corners of the town and beyond. Faces, some familiar and others not, looked to him for guidance, their expressions a mixture of anger and determination. "We can't let Henry's death be meaningless," James began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "He believed in us, in our strength to stand up and fight for what is right. Now, we must show that he was right to believe in us." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Dr. Emily Ross, a renowned scientist who had recently moved to Jasper, stepped forward. She had been working closely with James to develop a plan for the town's defense. "We have to be smart about this," Emily said, her analytical mind already at work. "The Vorn are technologically superior, but they underestimate our resilience and ingenuity. We need to organize our resources, fortify our defenses, and develop strategies that leverage our strengths." The townspeople nodded, their spirits bolstered by her confidence. James and Emily divided the crowd into groups, each tasked with specific responsibilities: building fortifications, gathering supplies, and training for combat. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorn mothership, Tlan paced his laboratory, his mind racing. The more he learned about Henry and the humans, the more he questioned his people's actions. He reviewed footage of Henry's speeches and read through reports on human history, marveling at their capacity for courage and unity despite their apparent weaknesses. Tlan knew he had to act. He contacted Dr. Ross through a secure, untraceable channel, hoping to bridge the gap between their species. The message was brief but sincere: an apology for Henry's death and a warning of the Vorn's plans. Back on Earth, Emily was initially skeptical when she received Tlan's message. The idea of an alien sympathizer seemed far-fetched, but the detailed information he provided convinced her of his sincerity. She decided to share the message with James, hoping it would give them an edge. "This could be our chance," Emily said, showing the message to James. "If we can trust Tlan, he might be able to provide us with critical information about the Vorn's weaknesses." James considered the possibility. Trusting an alien was risky, but they were running out of options. "Let's proceed with caution," he replied. "We can't afford to ignore any potential advantage." As they worked tirelessly to prepare for the next encounter, the town of Jasper transformed. Barricades went up, patrols were established, and the townspeople trained day and night, driven by a shared purpose. James and Emily coordinated their efforts, drawing on their combined military and scientific expertise. Tlan continued to feed them information, risking his own safety to provide crucial insights. Through his guidance, they learned about the Vorn's communication systems, weaponry, and potential vulnerabilities. Each piece of intelligence brought them closer to leveling the playing field. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, James stood at the edge of town, watching the sky. His thoughts drifted to Henry, whose sacrifice had galvanized them all. He felt a surge of determination, knowing that they were fighting not just for their survival, but for a future where such sacrifices would no longer be necessary. Emily joined him, her expression thoughtful. "We've come a long way in a short time," she said. "But we need to be ready for anything. The Vorn won't stop until they achieve their objective, whatever that may be." James nodded. "We will be ready. For Henry, for everyone." As they stood together, a sense of resolve settled over them. They were united in their cause, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The bonds forged through their shared struggle gave them strength, a strength that would see them through the coming trials. In the depths of space, Tlan monitored the preparations, his resolve mirroring that of the humans he had come to admire. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but he was committed to helping them succeed. The next day, the first sign of the Vorn's return appeared in the sky, shimmering ships descending once more. This time, however, Jasper was ready. The townspeople stood shoulder to shoulder, fortified by their determination and the knowledge they had gained. James Cooper stood in the makeshift command center, a converted school gymnasium now buzzing with activity. The townspeople, organized into various teams, worked tirelessly to prepare for the Vorn's return. Maps of the town and surrounding areas were spread across tables, marked with strategic positions and defense plans. Emily Ross approached James, her face lined with worry yet resolute. "The intelligence Tlan provided is invaluable," she said, handing him a tablet displaying detailed schematics of Vorn weaponry. "We've made significant progress on our countermeasures, but we need to act quickly." James nodded, appreciating her tireless dedication. "Let's gather the leaders. We need to finalize our strategy." The leaders of the town's defense teams assembled, a diverse group of farmers, former soldiers, engineers, and scientists. Each brought unique skills to the table, united by a common purpose. As James and Emily outlined the plan, the room filled with a sense of determined focus. "We know the vorn will target our key infrastructure," James explained, pointing to marked locations on the map. "We'll set up defensive positions here, here, and here. Emily, your team will handle the technological countermeasures." Emily stepped forward. "We'll deploy EMP devices at these locations," she said, indicating points on the map. "They should disrupt the vorn's advanced systems, giving us an edge." As the meeting continued, Tlan observed from his hidden vantage point within the vorn mothership. His heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. Every piece of information he sent to Emily was a risk, but he knew it was necessary. The vorn's arrogance and cruelty had gone too far, and he could no longer stand by and watch. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Jasper, another figure moved with purpose. Commander Zerl, having sensed Tlan's descent, had sent spies to monitor his activities. One such spy, a vorn named Rax, had infiltrated the town, blending in with the chaos. Rax's mission was clear: discover the extent of human preparations and eliminate any threats to the vorn's plans. As night fell, James and a small team embarked on a covert mission to place the EMP devices. The town was eerily quiet, the weight of impending conflict pressing down on everyone. They moved silently through the darkened streets, their senses alert to any sign of danger. Halfway to their destination, James halted, signaling the team to stop. "Something's not right," he whispered. "Stay sharp." From the shadows, Rax watched their every move, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. He had orders to sabotage the human efforts and report back to Commander Zerl. As James and his team continued, Rax followed, his presence undetected. Reaching the designated location, Emily began setting up the EMP device while James and the others stood guard. The tension in the air was thick as they worked quickly, aware of the ticking clock. Suddenly, a faint noise caught James's attention. He spun around, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice low but firm. For a moment, silence. Then, Rax lunged from the shadows, aiming for Emily. James reacted instinctively, intercepting Rax and grappling with the alien. The two struggled fiercely, each trying to gain the upper hand. Emily, caught off guard, quickly recovered and resumed her work on the EMP device. "I need a few more minutes," she shouted, her hands moving with practiced precision. James fought with all his strength, determined to protect his team and complete their mission. Rax, though strong and agile, was no match for James's resolve. With a final burst of energy, James overpowered Rax, subduing him and securing the area. Breathing heavily, James turned to Emily. "How much longer?" "Almost done," she replied, making the final adjustments. "There, it's ready." James nodded, signaling the team to move out. They left the area quickly, knowing the EMP device was now in place and ready to disrupt the vorn's systems. As they made their way back to the command center, the reality of their situation weighed heavily on them. The battle ahead would be unlike anything they had faced before, but they were prepared to fight for their home. Back at the command center, James and Emily briefed the others on the successful deployment. "We're one step closer to being ready," James said, his voice steady but filled with a steely resolve. "Now, we wait for the vorn to make their move." As the night wore on, the people of Jasper continued their preparations, each task bringing them closer to the inevitable confrontation. In the depths of space, Tlan watched the unfolding events with a mix of hope and anxiety, knowing that the fate of both their worlds hung in the balance. The sky above Jasper filled with alien ships, their metallic hulls reflecting the setting sun. James Cooper stood with his team, ready for the imminent confrontation. Every individual, from the seasoned fighters to the newly trained volunteers, held their ground with a mixture of anxiety and resolve. Emily Ross, nearby, adjusted her equipment, ensuring that the EMP devices were ready to deploy. In the vorn mothership, Tlan monitored the situation closely. His decision to aid humanity had set him on a dangerous path, but he remained committed to preventing further bloodshed. As he relayed final pieces of crucial information to Emily, he knew that every second counted. James gave a nod to his team, signaling the start of their coordinated defense. "Stay focused and remember your training," he called out. "We do this for Henry, for our families, and for our future." The first wave of vorn troops descended, their movements swift and calculated. James and his team launched their preemptive strike, utilizing the EMP devices to disrupt the alien technology. The vorn, taken aback by the sudden loss of their technological advantage, faltered. James seized the opportunity, leading his team in a counterattack that pushed the vorn back. Amid the chaos, Emily's scientific prowess shone through. She orchestrated the deployment of additional EMP devices, creating zones where the vorn's advanced weaponry was rendered useless. This strategic use of technology leveled the playing field, allowing the humans to fight on more equal terms. As the battle raged, Tlan's betrayal was discovered. Commander Zurl, furious and desperate to regain control, ordered his forces to capture Tlan. The scientist, now a fugitive within his own ranks, continued to send vital information to Emily while evading capture. His actions were driven by a newfound respect for humanity and a desire to correct the wrongs his people had committed. James's leadership was put to the ultimate test as waves of vorn reinforcements arrived. He directed his team with precision, adapting their strategies to counter the ever-evolving threats. His experience and quick thinking kept the defenders one step ahead, but the sheer number of enemies threatened to overwhelm them. In the midst of battle, Rax, the vorn spy embedded in Jasper, made his move. He targeted Emily, recognizing her as a key figure in the human resistance. Rax's sudden attack caught her off guard, but James intervened, engaging Rax in a fierce struggle. The fight was intense, with both combatants giving their all. Ultimately, James overpowered Rax, but not without sustaining injuries. With Rax neutralized, Emily refocused on the battle at hand. The tide began to turn as the coordinated efforts of the defenders started to take effect. The vorn, unprepared for such organized resistance, began to retreat. James, despite his injuries, continued to rally his team, pushing the advantage. In the command center of the vorn mothership, Tlan managed to send one last critical piece of intelligence before being captured by Zurl's forces. This information revealed the vorn's central command structure and the weaknesses that could be exploited. Emily, receiving this data, quickly relayed it to James. Using Tlan's information, James devised a plan to target the vorn command ship. He led a small, elite team on a daring assault, breaching the alien defenses and infiltrating the vessel. The final confrontation with Commander Zurl was brutal and intense. Zurl, realizing his defeat, fought with desperate ferocity, but James's determination and tactical acumen prevailed. The defeat of Zurl's command ship sent shockwaves through the vorn forces. Disoriented and leaderless, the remaining vorn troops withdrew, abandoning their invasion. The people of Jasper, battered but unbroken, watched as the alien ships retreated into the sky. As the dust settled, James and Emily surveyed the aftermath. The town had suffered, but their spirit remained intact. They had faced an overwhelming threat and emerged victorious, thanks to their unity and the unexpected alliance with Tlan. James approached Emily, his expression a mix of exhaustion and relief. "We did it," he said, his voice hoarse. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the same mix of emotions. "We couldn't have done it without everyone's efforts, and without Tlan's help." In the days that followed, the town of Jasper began to rebuild. Tlan, now a prisoner of the vorn, awaited his fate, knowing he had made a difference. His actions had not only saved lives but had also paved the way for a potential future of understanding between their species.